Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Well, a fine evening to you, Dennis.
And to you, Monsieur Erik.
That is my name. Yes.
The sexy beast.
Welcome to Happy Hour number 26. Do you know what that means?
We've done 24 of them?
No. 26. Do you know what 26 times 2 is?
57.
You are just you're
Spot
like a
on.
human calculator. Yes. We have done this for half of a year.
My God.
Another 26 and we've rounded the first lap.
Right. We are actually going up in 7 countries. After the last episode, we went up 6 to 8 listeners in 6 different countries, including the United States. And we are now in some places, as you know, Uruguay, where we are most popular, and in the top 952nd, I believe, isn't it? Or 652, I can't remember which. But in one, we're 3,376 most listened to podcasts.
Right. Well, I mean, clearly.
So we got another 6 people.
Yeah.
Now, they probably already turned off because they hate data, right?
I hate data, yes. And data. What have you done this week, Dennis?
Well, so still the house continues. Concrete was poured in the driveway. Concrete was poured on the sidewalks. So I also had central air conditioning put in. It's been a banner week, and the painters are out there now finishing up. They have one more day. The windows are coming. And it's interesting about concrete, because when it goes down, it's all rocky and chunky, and then it settles, and as soon as you touch it with a steel instrument to smooth it, it raises the liquid and the soft concrete part of it higher.
Really?
And the stone sinks. Well, it's like quicksand. So the stone in it sinks to the bottom when you're working it.
Right.
So when you're moving it around, you're moving it. Right.
Right.
And I do need it badly.
Well, you need a lot of things.
But it's fun to do that. I had a patch of concrete that was, I swear to God, 1 foot by 2 foot. That was my responsibility. So I scarfed up.
Wait.
2 buckets.
That's 2 square feet.
Yes. As opposed to the sidewalk was 5 blocks, 5 feet by 5 feet square each. Right?
25 square feet.
25 times 5.
And 125.
And the driveway was 38 feet by 8 feet wide. So I had a little 2 foot by 1 foot patch. I could not get it right. I finally settled for good, perfect being the enemy thereof, and did the final touch, which makes other mistakes matter less. I took a brush and I brushed in lines like a sculpted.
Did you write happyhour.fm in the concrete?
Oh no.
Well, that was a mistake.
Yeah. Well, so is this podcast. So we might as well have 2 of them.
That was a mistake among many.
Mistakes we made in the entire half year since we started. But one of the mistakes we made, we've repeated the mistake 26 times. So
there you go.
That might be a record. That's for the thick-headed, not for the thin-skinned. Speaking of which,
we're not learning.
How are your roommates doing in Brooklyn? How's everyone doing? All the sad podcasters who have no listeners other than each other.
They're good. They eat a lot of burritos. Which means it's the
plain, no sauce on them.
Yeah,
just right out of the microwave.
Yeah, so the air in the apartment is a little rank, but it makes our voices deeper, I think, for our podcast.
Well, if you cook the burrito in a microwave, not quite long enough, which is perfect for you folks, then when you bite into it, it's kind of spongy and tears slowly, kind of gummy.
Right.
Kind of like epoxy that's almost dry but not quite.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's what you guys love.
And when you apply a utensil to it, like the harder chunks sort of sink down, like in concrete.
Yes.
Yes. So.
Well, it's a lot. Yeah. Right. Analogies there. So that worked, and I put the steps on the porch, and this is what I have to say about that. So you're in a situation where you don't want you can't be perfect at things, but you want to be very good anyway, and I certainly strive for that. And when you're working with a house, It's built in 1910. Nothing's straight. The house is crooked. The porch on the house is crooked. The sidewalk in front of the porch in front of the house is crooked.
The owner.
It's tilted, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. So I build 2 walls to hold the steps, 2 3-foot tall walls, 34-inch tall walls. Those 2 sway a bit this way, aren't quite straight this way, because what do I want to be straight with? What do I want to be square with? What do I want to be plumb with? Well, whatever it is, that thing is out of plumb with everything else. So there's no way that it isn't going to look off to me, but to anybody else, not so much, I guess.
What a metaphor.
So when I put this...
What do I want to be plumb with? That's like...
What do you want to be square with? What do you want to be plumb with?
That's...
What do you want to be rough with? What do you want to be up against and compared to?
Man, you're blowing my mind.
What goes through your head that you've never thought about these things? No, you're just... I hope the rest of the millennials are not like you. I've met quite a few millennials. It seems that they're moving toward Elizabeth Warren in droves from Bernie. Seems to be.
The materials I work with are pixels, and your pixels are square, and you can be properly aligned and exactly perfect with pixels. But that said, it's really difficult to... The hardest part of organizing stuff on web pages and things with pixels and web pages and mobile apps and stuff is that back in the day, you knew that your content was going to be consumed by a big screen, relatively big screen. And now we have so many different screen sizes, and getting your shit to look good on all the different screen sizes is just a nightmare.
Yeah.
But anyway, take me back to your
interesting circumstance where you settle for what you're ever willing to settle for.
There's always a compromise.
Depend on your reasonability,
life
your
is
reasonableness, depending on the time, the resources, etc. And so here's the steps: the crooked house and the crooked porch and the crooked columns on the crooked porch and the crooked concrete and everything which way. Mm-hmm. I get the steps, but I have a level that's 3 feet long. So it will tell me true whether stuff is level. So I'm damn sure the steps are going to be level against what? Level against the house, because unlike everything else, the house sits left to right, square.
Wait. I thought levels worked with gravity to the center of the earth, with your little bubble or whatnot.
Yes.
So
when the bubbles line up, you're square.
Right.
Horizontally or vertically.
Right.
When they line up at the center of the bubble.
To gravity, to the center of the earth. Or to the center
I'm not sure
of the earth. Yes.
You want to move into a sort of like a...
No, but you're saying level with another object. That's assuming that the other object is square, plumb.
To the center of the earth. You know why you know that? You use your tool and you say, I'll be damned. The house is straight, at least the 3 feet.
Right.
That's in the door, mm-hmm. which is the center of the porch. That's square. That's centered. That's good. That's level. So my stairs are level to that. But when I go and I get it all level and I put the risers up, the 2x10s that are cut to hold your steps, mm-hmm. 11 inches wide, 7 inches up, etc. I've got those all level. I've got them all the same distance away from each other at the top and at the bottom. Then when I go to put my boards on, which I pre-cut and numbered, oddly enough, 1 through 8 and 10 through 13. I don't know what happened to number 9. I never recorded it. I jumped, and you know what I say? Number 9, number 9, number 9,
exactly.
Number 9.
Exactly.
So here we go. Now what happens? I finally got it straight. The boards are fucking crooked.
Wait,
the boards.
Are you anti-revolution? Number 9?
Number 9, number 9, number 9.
Okay, so the boards are crooked.
Number 9. The boards are crooked. They sway on end, and when you buy a board, you eye it up the best you can, but when you cut a certain piece of it, then suddenly one end of it goes up, one of it goes down, and so you have to compromise for eyesight. If you look at a porch step, and one side of the step has got a gap that's 2 inches, and the other side is 1 inch, it's going to look crooked, mm-hmm. even though it's level. So what you do, you compromise level for visibility and almost an emotional, visceral view of it, independent of the level. And it becomes, how much off are you comfortable with as you compromise between the gap and the degree of levelness of the step. And I found a sweet spot, and then I repeated it 5 times.
Mind
and
that.
It moved forward quickly after that.
What a beautiful metaphor for life in general. Like, on the one hand, you have scientific truth, and then on the other hand, you have perceived experience,
Expectations.
and
perceived expectations.
And you have to try and you can't if you're going to be hard-nosed. No, this is really level. Just deal with it. No emotions, science, left brain, fact, and you ignore the stereotypically right-brained emotional experience of the world. You
won't be satisfied.
You won't be satisfied. You will also be wrong.
You won't be satisfied.
But if you go in the opposite extreme of, I want this to feel right, but then it's really all crooked, and then over time you end up in trouble.
Right. So what you have to do is you have to be best at it both ways.
Exactly.
You have to be best at it both ways. And so, to give it an example, so back 3 houses ago, we tore out a kitchen, gutted it completely, and against the narrow wall, we put a antique-looking new gas stove and a hood. And the hood was a monster, sat well over 2 feet above the stovetop, as you would expect, and it was almost as big as the stovetop. It was a chrome. And in order to get it straight and in properly, we put it in and took it out 3 times. And this is 2 men on a ladder, and this weighs 300 pounds. So we've got the equivalent of, 200 pounds anyway. 2 people.
Yeah.
The weight of 2 people on ladders lifting it up and down, up and down, up and down. And we ended up accepting what we considered as level as it could be, and it was off in a 3-foot space, 1/8 of an inch. In a 3-foot space, 1/8 of an inch. From the ceiling to the fan, a big column was off. It drove me crazy.
Yep.
I'd look at the end of the kitchen in a small room, and all I could see was a crooked chimney or a duct. This is what I did.
Hold on.
As good as I could get.
That's one of those things where the creator, the one that does it, will always see that flaw, but no one else will. It's a bit like when you're performing music or something, and you get through your set or whatever, and you heard 50 mistakes in the 20 minutes that you were playing, and then the audience is like, "That was perfect, man. That was totally perfect." But because
right.
you see all the mistakes.
Right. Well, so with this in mind, there's a guy who is the most excellent tile layer that I've ever met in my life from Grand Rapids, and
the tile guy,
Jim
the tile guy.
Jim the tile guy, and he did my son's house, and we tiled the small bathroom, but we tiled the entire bathroom, walls, mostly windows and doors, so it was ceiling in the wall space, and then we got 4 slabs of granite and threw it on the floor. But he did all this work.
Tiles feels like a thing where little mistakes will mess with you psychologically if you did it yourself.
Well, so good point. Here's Jim, the perfectionist.
Mm-hmm.
I say to him, the stovetop is off 1/8 of an inch from top to bottom, and we're laying tile vertical from top to bottom, the long way. Between this space here and this space here to the wall, when you lay the tile, you have approximately 2 feet. Within that 2 feet, since the tile are 1 inch, you have 24 tiles. If you will change the vertical nature of each of those 24 rows of tiles, evenly dividing 1/8 of an inch by 24 tiles, no one will ever see that it's crooked.
Nice.
And he said, "Yeah, I got you."
And he did it.
I got you. He did it perfectly.
Nice.
He did it perfectly.
This is where, like, when I was in school, and for sure my kids now are like, math, what's math good for? But this sort of thing where you can figure out exactly how much to shift something in a minuscule way so that it's not perceptible, but then works out fine.
It's an illusion.
It's gorgeous.
It's an illusion.
I love it.
And the piece de resistance was on the corner. There was a piece of oak and wood that we had painted white to match the tile. The whole kitchen was painted white with tile, etc. And at the top of that was a tooled cone that looked sort of like a chestnut wood or a acorn wood, acorn with a little cap on it, right? Mm-hmm. Carved in the wood. And Jim carved a piece of tile to fit around that perfectly with the same exact width of grout that he applied between all the tiles. And I would show people my house, and invariably I would end not on the stove story,
right,
but on that little piece there,
thing.
where after that accomplishment of the stove, which he did first, he still took the time to finish that.
I have so much respect for that level of attention to detail that you can. It's so easy to be the kind of person where you're just like, all right, this is done, whatever, give me my money. But to go into the specific detail of making sure that this is perfect, which I certainly appreciate, and I try to strive to myself in my own work with the pixels and whatnot.
So is the reason that you moved out of the U.S. is because working with little pixels got you in some kind of trouble?
Yeah, I was banned from being anywhere near pixels in the U.S. for like 20 years. My sentence is almost up. So
right. So anyway, so here's the deal, man. I finish the steps, and I back up and I walk away, and I know this. I know that the gaps between the steps, which are the black lines that you pick up in your vision, mm-hmm. are even enough and uniform enough to nearly pass muster with me. Mm-hmm. Knowing that I had crooked boards and knowing that each of the steps is off meeting my negotiated standard of levelness.
Negotiated with yourself?
With myself, with me, myself, and Irene.
Or with the Lord? I mean, Jesus was a carpenter.
Well, speaking of the Lord, while you got a second here, go ahead and just bring up the acronym and look for pictures of JFC while you're doing that, and see what comes up, because I caught one today. I think you'll find it.
Oh Jesus! I mean, oh Jesus, fried chicken! Wow. Okay, that
Colonel Sanders is Jesus.
That would be in the show notes. Oh my God! So
isn't that great?
Is this competition against Chick-fil-A for their super Christian-y stuff? There's recently been this thing that has been called like hashtag Chicken Wars, where apparently there's been a bunch of publicity around Popeye's chicken, where they have they've been like secretly releasing this new exclusive fried chicken between pieces of bread, which is the new chicken sandwich
that the guy pulled a gun on him and said, "What do you mean you're out of it? You're going to get me one of these or I'm going to kill you."
Ah, yes, you're referring back to the Michael Douglas thing that we talked about.
Michael Douglas?
Who pulled it?
The actor?
Fuck. Who said what are you talking about?
This happened. This is a news story. That the Popeye's chicken, the new chicken sandwich that they put out, they ran out and a guy pulled a gun on him and said, "You will get me one of these or I'll kill you." Had a gun.
A man pulled a gun to demand Popeye's chicken sandwiches after they sold out in Houston.
Bingo.
Wow.
And you're thinking that this Michael Douglas did it? I don't. I know he likes to eat sandwiches, but I don't.
Remember we had a discussion about the Michael Douglas movie where he was in a fast food joint, but you said it was a Walmart, and I think you were actually more correct than I was. Okay. Interesting. So that link will be in the show notes.
Well, great. That's a thrill.
At happyhour.fm/026.
Hard to believe.
Because we're too sexy for our beers. No, that's not funny.
I think you might be. I know I'm not. So, in the news this week, lots of interesting things. The Democratic debate resolving itself and some changing in the polls.
Really?
interesting.
Who moved?
Well, Warren is moving. Elizabeth Warren is moving, and Bernie's moving too. And
I saw a whole bunch of stuff on Twitter where Warren did an event in New York City.
Yes.
And there was like a 5-hour line around the block to get your selfie with Warren.
This is what we're seeing is that Warren has much of the futuristic and some would say ultra liberal agenda, or some would say the socialist agenda that Bernie has with education for all, Medicare for all. But
without
she has a knack.
Crazies talk.
She doesn't shout about it all the time until she's hoarse. She doesn't look like she wants to beat you up about it. She's being called a gentler version of Bernie, who's becoming a bit of an issue because his grandfatherly, irascible, always mad, wears thin, as opposed to warm, compassionate, explanatory, and what someone called oratory skills that are ridiculous. You can't say that about Bernie. Bernie can incite a crowd.
Yes.
But but there's more to it. Bernie doesn't break things down as well as she does. And I think what we're seeing is a recognition that this isn't 2016 and that this isn't the first socialist, pro-socialist candidate. Warren can say what she wants about being a capitalist. I believe you have socialistic and capitalistic characteristics without a doubt. You don't have to be one or the other.
But Warren is taking advantage of the ice that Bernie broke in 2016. In fact, far left.
And recognizes him for that. But while he is on an icebreaker plowing through, and his voice and his hoarse, crazy look is what is making that ice break. Mm-hmm. She is in a souped-up '53 Chevy and just saying, "Thanks, man. I got this." The most youthful 71-year-old I've ever seen.
For sure. I've not seen any, because the typical sexist critique of women politicians is that they are, they're too excitable, or they're too emotional, or whatever. But she seems to understand that and be so on the level with her emotion and control.
And what you can look at, the way to measure that is through likability. Okay, that's a proxy for all these characteristics, right? Likability. And so negative polling, what are your negatives? How many people think negative of you? It tells such a story for that very reason. While Warren and Sanders poll favorably, similarly, with Bernie, I think I had a bit unfavorable. Bernie's twice as high as she is.
Right.
So many fewer people feel poorly about her. And as you move toward the nomination, the independents are the ones who they want to know that you've got some flexibility here and, and you're not screaming for revolution.
They're both likable, but Bernie is more hateable.
Or dislikable.
Dislikable, yeah.
Yeah, would be kinder, but you're probably right on the hate category, too.
Cracking open another one. All right. When I was editing the previous episode, and you won't remember this, but you ended with this thing of and the number to call to talk Erik off of the ledge is 1116, which was just a made up number that you came up with. But so, I went and I plugged that into the Googles and to the Wikipedias, and for any number you can name, there's something. For any number under 2019, there's a Wikipedia article telling you things that happened in that year.
Right.
And despite the fact that there are very little citations, so we don't really know that any of this is true, there's a bunch of stuff that people think happened in the year 1116.
Really?
And such as there was the King Baldwin I of Jerusalem that attacked Egypt the Middle East has been fraught for literally
always
900 years.
fighting. Always fighting about something.
But my favorite. Well, also there was a queen of Sweden was born. Blah blah blah. But my very favorite one was, and this is totally uncited, and I have found no other sources of this, but Wikipedia says that in China, the first modern book with separate pages stitched together was created in the year 1116.
Wikipedia doesn't have a citation for where they got that?
It does not. So someone just made that up.
Strange.
And the other pages I found about the history of books say, yeah, maybe around then, maybe 1,000 years earlier. We don't really know. So anyway, that's.
I do recall asking you during the recording if you knew the significance of 1116.
Do you?
And yes, and you said after long thinking, you said no, and I said, which I thought was funny, was there isn't one.
Correct.
Well, the joke's on me.
Exactly. I mean, the joke is always on you, but yes.
Always on me. I'm not sure I like the sound of that.
Well,
always on me.
Let's say usually.
Always. What?
Usually.
Explain yourself. Okie dokie.
This past weekend was my family decided that this past weekend was maybe the last weekend where our temperatures were high enough so we could go and enjoy the beach. And where I live, every time I go, like, I don't really like going to the beach. When I'm at home, I think, the beach, I don't know. But I live 10 minutes away from one of the nicest beaches I've ever seen. We have.
And what body of water?
In the English maps, call it the Bay of Biscay. It's kind of it's the part in the northern, the water north of Spain.
I know it.
The Spanish call it the Cantabrian Sea. Really, it's the Atlantic Ocean. But anyway, and so we went to the beach at 12 noon, which is like getting up early in Spain, and we spent 7 hours at the beach with my kids, and which is not a thing that we normally do, or certainly not a thing that I normally like to do, because I like to go to the beach, I like to walk a little bit, and then get in the water, and once I'm all salty and wet, I very quickly want to go home and shower, because...
You can't shower there?
There's
no public showers?
There are outdoor things that will put water on you, but I like to get properly clean.
Well, no, I'm certain you do, but have you tried the intermediate step to see if you could extend your stay? I mean, you sound fucking miserable.
No. I'm not
dripping with salt. You wanna run home and cleanse yourself. Do you use like a Brillo pad or like scraping tools? Or I mean, you sound a little possessed here.
I have a high-powered sander that I use on my genitals, but
what?
No, but
you can't say that. Well, I guess you can. You can say about what you want, but it'll get out. No pun intended.
But but anyway, because I'm so bored with just lying there on the ground, like
at the beach.
At the beach.
Don't you read
on the sand? I had a book, but You're
not comfortable? Didn't you have a chair?
No, we didn't bring a chair. We just had a towel.
Oh. No, see, that's the problem. You've got to have a little chair.
Other people have a little chair. But still.
Yeah, you can't get comfortable laying around.
Even so. I don't... Anyway, that's not my jam.
There's more to it.
So what I did... this beach is 7 kilometers, which is 4.35 miles long. And... So first, we left our kids playing in the sand, and my wife and I walked that entire distance. And then after we had a little dip in the water, my wife was lying on the sand, and I was like, I'm going to go for another walk. And I did another 3 miles walk in the sand, which is the hardest. This was not dry sand. This was right there where the waves are coming in, so it was hard sand. But still,
That's bad.
the muscles in your feet that normally with a shoe on don't need to flex.
Right.
Were doing a lot of work. So by the time I got back, I was just my feet were exhausted and hurting.
Your metatarsals.
My metatarsals, yes. My kids and a friend that they brought were 7 hours playing in the sand. They must have moved a ton of sand. You know, picking up dirt and moving over there, and picking up sand and moving over there, and then digging a thing, and then the tide was coming in, right? So whatever castle they had built got destroyed, so they moved a little bit further back, and they built another one, and then it got destroyed, and they moved further back, and they built another one, and they did more work than, like, if I had told them, okay, look, for the next 6 hours you're going to do physical labor, they would be like,
No way.
Fuck this.
Move the sand from here to there, then from there to here, and when you're done, dig a hole. And when you're done with that, fill it up. It's like sand boot camp.
But
hey, have you seen the contests of sand building castles where they're so big that people can actually walk in them, and they have these huge contests? You need to Google this.
I've seen some amazing sand.
It's what, who, how, and teams of 20, 30 people.
Okay.
With equipment.
That will be in the show notes.
Back to the beat.
At happyhour.fm/026. So yeah, it was a long day, but it was a generally happy day. And we came home and we
well,
shouted
happy
and we
day.
But that was and every time that so like I said, when I'm at home, I'm like, the beach. But every time I go, I think, wow, like I live in this beautiful corner of the world where a lot of the people that are there have traveled 4 or 5 hours from somewhere to be at this beautiful location, and it takes me 10 minutes to get there. And
10 minutes.
Yeah, and I get back home and I'm showered in 20 minutes after I leave the beach, and it's a luxury that I can take for granted sometimes that I wish I appreciated more. Well,
for you, well, happy day. Oh yeah,
happy hour. .fm.
Oh, God.
Greetings, podcast listeners. I'd like to break the fourth wall for a moment and talk directly to you. Dennis and I have a lot of fun making this show, but podcasting takes equipment, time, and energy. If we're going to sustain this show for the long term, we need some help from you. Think about it like this. We're giving you roughly 4 hours of content every month. How much is 4 hours of entertainment worth to you? Think about other things that you pay for to be entertained for 4 hours, like 2 movies, or a round of golf, or a weekly yoga class, or maybe a concert. That's the level of support we'd like from you. If you find our discussions entertaining, we'd really appreciate any support you can afford to give. Please, if you can't afford to give money, don't. But if you can, to donate, go to happyhour.fm and click on the red Become a Patron button at the top. And then choose a tier that you'd like to support us at. Thank you very, very much. Now, back to the nonsense.
I'm listening to, in my borrowed car, I turned the CD player on and found some CDs on the seat and stuck one in. And it's Michael Jackson's post-death compendium. What was it called? Something about life. I don't know. Like, I can't remember. I wish I knew the damn name of it. You can look it up and then we'll correct it. But
Life After Death.
It's amazing. No, not.
That's what it should have been.
That would be a great album for posthumous recognition. Life After Death.
Hold on, I got some real-time follow-up. It's called This Is It.
This is it, right? It's amazing, and I just listen to it nonstop every minute I'm in the car, which isn't long because the car can only go 3 miles before it overheats, so I'm effectively limited. It was like Alan, back in the day in Wilmington, he had a truck, and the truck gas tank got a hole in it, and he learned that if he put no more than like 2 gallons of gas in, that it wouldn't leak, and so he never had a radius of where he could go without getting gas in more than like 12 miles or whatever.
Hey man, that's okay. I have a topic to discuss with you because last weekend, the day after I went to the beach and I was exhausted, I went to see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh.
And I went with an American friend that I have here, and we saw because it's really hard to find the non-overdubbed version. We saw the version in English with Spanish subtitles of this movie. Holy shit.
Holy shit.
What a movie.
What a final act, huh?
Well,
it's a 3-act play. What a final act.
Wait. Yeah. But it's my first impression was that at the beginning of the movie they were laying on the it was really 1969, but we'll call it the 70s Hollywood nostalgia trip really, really hard. Every time there was a potential chance someone got in a car or touched the radio of a car, they changed the music to another thing that was period appropriate, which is so Tarantino. This was Tarantino's wet dream because he has so much respect for those old days of Hollywood, and it was personally, I really am looking forward to learning about how they did all of the scenes where they're driving by historic Hollywood landmarks, because I know for a fact that those are all done in the computer somehow. And
sure.
And every one of those marquees with names on them, I feel confident that Tarantino got period accurate for what was that month in the cinema, in the theater, at those places. But
yes, and he so firmly established the dateline in the first act, and I've read some stuff about this, and there was a Dean Martin role that was cut. And also, there was an actor who was cut out altogether. I can't remember what part. I can't remember the actor. Tim Roth.
Mm-hmm. Well, Tim Roth is a frequent Tarantino character. Yes,
frequent flyer. But his role was cut out altogether, whatever it was. But so I know we talked about some things. I think we talked about this that I asked you to take notice of, and that was the actor who played Steve McQueen at the party.
Yes, who is the guy from his most famous thing? I think is Band of Brothers and also Homeland.
Well, he nailed it.
Yeah.
He nailed it. I was such a huge fan of Steve McQueen. Everything he did, every bit of it. Loved him as an actor. Understated and remarkably gifted, physically and stage-wise. But I love that. The
actor that played him was Damian Lewis. I really appreciated the because I have recently, for the first time, seen The Great Escape. I really liked.
Oh, really?
I really liked the throwback, the sort of Forrest Gump editing of having Leo playing The Great Escape, which was good.
Yeah, which was just such a dream piece, and didn't DiCaprio stretch?
You said
his skills.
You said
to the max.
You said on the episode that we talked about this that might be Leo's greatest performance ever, and I have to completely agree.
Oh, really?
He was amazing.
He was amazing. He was so credible, and wasn't Brad Pitt the most underplayed? Remarkably so until the third act.
Right.
When all of that laying in wait and that slow-moving, little Jethro.
Yeah.
Hello, I just think I'll take a look. I thought it was remarkable. From another actor, it might not have been remarkable, but for Brad Pitt to be able to rein himself in to the point of underplaying a role, he let his body language and his physical being do more of the acting than I've ever seen.
For sure.
The way he walked, the way he carried himself, the way he sat, how he leaned. I think that this movie is up for a lot of Academy Awards this year.
Well, and I've got a couple things to say about that. The yes, for sure he
he
did this subtle it felt like you were watching a real person, and
Yeah.
you got to love the dog food serving scenes, which was yeah. But he, aside from kicking Bruce Lee's ass, which was hilarious.
Right, and the degree that the car was dented was classic. Tarantino was like, "Who cares how real this?
Yeah.
Who cares if this would kill any normal man? Denting a car like that?" And the guy just like shakes it off. It was great.
Well, and I really appreciated that Tarantino. Really, there was only 3 minutes of gratuitous violence. If we set aside the Bruce Lee
pretty
thing.
Heavy, that was pretty explosive.
True.
So the one thing that I ask people who've seen it is this: do you think that he hit her head against the counter enough times?
Well, don't spoil it for our listener, but yes, there was some counter head, some head counter. Yes, and yeah, it was just well done. And apparently, I didn't. The guy that I saw this movie with is about 10 years older than me, so he recognized a lot more of the nostalgia bits because for sure.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you
for sure. This was if you remember 1969, there was so many call outs to you as a viewer,
right?
With all the products and all the signs and styles and things. But the other thing I wanted to say is that this is really, to put it as vulgar as Quentin would, this is really sort of sucking the Academy's dick on getting an Oscar. Because if you look at movies like LA Confidential and La La Land that are all about how great
Nostalgia.
Los Angeles is. It's all about Los Angeles is really the center of the world. This movie is very much in that feeling, in that genre, where the Academy is going to eat this shit up.
Well, and so check this. So in 1969, I was 16 years old. And all of the movies and all of the actors and all of the singers and all of the cars and all the things there were what I was surrounded by, but also what I coveted in terms of the cars, and I wanted to be the actors. I mean, everyone was just so cool. I mean, and so that part of the movie that I got lost in very early certainly made that experience very much different for me than you, as you had mentioned earlier, because you know about these things, but you didn't live them. There wasn't a visceral,
right?
You didn't see The Great Escape when it came out,
right?
You didn't see it in color, when it came out, which was growing up with a black and white TV set and a little screen. It was about 14 inches across in the hard outdoor carpet of our living room. Had to have a pillow, but for those of us that have gone through these cataclysmic information and technology changes in our 65, 70 years, mm-hmm. This stuff is astounding when you see it on the screen. When Tarantino, what is he? How old is Tarantino? 45, 46? So he wasn't there.
But he's a student. He's
nostalgic of it.
He's 56.
It's like it's 56. Well,
so he was 7.
56.
He was 6 years old in 69. But
old enough, in fact, to be aware of it. Think about how that era, let's say that 3 to 5 year era, played out, because the stuff that was crazy cool and knocking it out of the park in 68 and 69 was still cool in 72.
Mm-hmm.
So you got a 4 year span. So then he's 10.
Right.
So I bought a 1974 Mercedes-Benz when I was 45, because when that car came out in 74, mm-hmm. when I was 19 years old,
it was the awesomest thing ever. Yeah,
I wanted it. Mm-hmm. And then when I could finally get it when I was 45, I got it sitting out there. Now I don't have any keys. Can't start it, and it doesn't run, and it's getting a little pockmarked. Uh-huh. Besides that, it's a great car.
No, when on this during the slow parts, like the time when Brad Pitt is going to the hippie commune, and you're like, what is going on here? How is this part of the story?
Oh my God.
That part, like when I was seeing it, I was thinking, this is strange. How is this going to be part of the story? But also, I was entertained as hell because it was just so gripping.
Ooh.
Every
And
moment.
Bruce Dern. Oh my God. Bruce Dern.
And
the old man in the shack.
Yeah. I have a theory that there was a little bit of analogy to Apocalypse Now there, where you've got this commune where a bunch of people are there, and then you've got this crazy guy that's sort of shacked up in the house. I don't know if that
he was never referred to nor characterized as anything other than the guy who owned it. Unlike
Right.
Apocalypse Now, the character in the cave. Oh God, we got to have a name here.
Kurt.
Kurt.
I think
Colonel Kurtz.
Kurtz. Yes.
Was a seer.
Right.
A seer and the controller and a demigod, which so the flavor of the logistics of it with a separated elder who you didn't know, right? I mean that certainly is, you could see that, and it was for all of the fast-paced parts of the movie. He was very, very comfortable
going slow when he wanted to.
Playing out the drama of these crazy hippies who you knew some of them were going to be responsible for the murders.
Well, you knew because how?
You knew because you knew something about the movie. The trailer for the movie and all the advertisements were all about Sharon Tate.
I didn't know about that, nor did I really know any of the history of Sharon Tate.
Oh my God!
So after I came out of the movie, and my movie going companion was like, well, that sort of altered the history of the Sharon Tate murders by the Manson family, and I was like, what? And so,
but you know about all this
now I do.
You didn't know about the Charles Manson and the Sharon Tate murders before you researched it after the movie? That's hard to believe.
I did not study.
Study. I'm not saying study. Did you know Charlie Manson?
I've heard of Charles Manson, and I knew that there was a Manson family that did some things, but I didn't know their victims' names, nor did I know their relation to Roman Polanski or any of that.
How could you live in a cave? I don't know.
Well,
I don't know. Where were you?
Because I was born after 1969.
Oh.
You know? Sorry, man. Born? After 1969. So
when?
Let's see, over 9 years after Sharon Tate died.
Oof.
But man, what a great casting of Margot Robbie as Sharon Tate.
Sharon Tate. And what was interesting, that in the movie, when she was watching herself in the theater with her filthy feet up on the chairs, which Tarantino had a fetishy thing going on with feet the whole movie, including one of the Manson family, the little young 16-year-old with her filthy feet up on the dashboard, etc. But she was watching actual footage of Sharon Tate.
Really? Cool.
Yes. And the fact that while certainly if you're not familiar with what Sharon Tate looks like, Margot Robbie certainly looks enough like Sharon Tate that for the uninformed, it's like, well, yeah, that's a credible resemblance.
Well done, Quentin.
But when juxtaposed against the actual footage of Sharon Tate in the movie, it was fairly obvious to me, of course, oh my God, he's not showing a clip with Margot Robbie sitting in for actual Sharon Tate. He's showing the real clip. Why? Because he's so fucking dedicated to that fact,
right? Nice.
That she did it and that it was done and it was what it was and it should not be fucked with.
Okay,
that's what he did.
One of my comments after seeing the movie was that whole scene where she's looking at herself in the movies. I didn't see a lot of point of that. Like that, in my opinion, that could have been cut. But now with your new information, I see why that was left in.
But here's the real reason why it's important to me. That showed how she felt about her own career at that stage, where she was so giddy with excitement that she finally had a part that was shown in a feature film.
Nice.
And she was named on the billboard. The setup then for her murder being that, talk about,
she was famous enough, right?
At the most satisfying point of her life, that her life was taken away from her. Not that, who knows what her career would have been. You could recognize in the film that back in the 60s, these women characters were not very serious. Of course, not that Dean Martin was, for heaven's sake, a serious actor, but still, I think that's what it established. And the dirty feet on the back of the chair showing that her economic strata, because this was the first time that she had actually done a movie, and who knows what she was paid, not much. But the fact that she was there, her feet were dirty, and she was the squeeze of Roman Polanski, right? That all helped put that together, that this is a young...
from nowhere...
yes.
Success.
Yes.
Right.
Impoverished and working so hard for a break and finding herself in the movie and then shacking up, and to the point where she couldn't discard her former beau,
right,
who she brought with her to the house because he was a beau and a friend who would not give up on her. And he knew, of course, that Roman Polanski would someday walk away, which, in fact, he did.
Yeah.
But it was after the murders. So anyway, I just thought a rock and ride of nostalgia and tremendous acting, and the screenplay was fabulous, and it was unique. It was everything I had hoped for from the next Tarantino movie.
Yeah, that was, someone listening is going to be writing their film studies paper on what you just said, which is brilliant. One other thing I wanted to say about the movie was I like the Western within a Western within a Western side of it, where I liked how in the scenes where DiCaprio was acting, we seamlessly switched into the camera that was filming his scene, right? So there was never any crew around, and the camera was moving exactly as it would filming him. And then when he had to say what's the next line or whatever, you could hear a voice in the background saying, "Oh, it's this," blah, 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 blah. And then he would start again. But I love that seamlessness because a lot of times when you see films being made in films, the filmmaker tries to make it more realistic with people running around and props and shit everywhere. But I liked that decision on Tarantino's part to make it blend in like that. Yeah,
seamless and in black and white as well. And I loved at the end it's a spoiler, so I won't do it. But it was pretty incredible. Pretty incredible. Now did you see the movie before that he did? What was it called? The Magnificent Eight or the
Magnificent Eight? Yeah, I think.
Not the Magnificent Eight. Not Magnificent, but if you haven't seen it, so here's another thing to think about ahead, and then I gotta go. There is a list that came out, and I'm sure it's common, that's called the 20 most flawless movies ever made, and I reviewed it today, and I've seen 18 of them. And it was amazing. Whoever come up with this list, and I can't tell you who, it didn't matter to me. I was just reading it. That what they said about, first of all, the selection that they had, which in the most part I certainly agreed with. But what they said about these movies in terms of a snippet, 3 sentences, a paragraph about what made it that way. Take a look at it. There's just any amount of interesting discussion there.
Tarantino's previous movie was called The Hateful Eight.
The Hateful Eight. And that was a bloodbath.
The studio was the now problematic The Weinstein Company. Yeah. As are really all of his previous movies are Miramax.
This was more violent in a close-up way. His other films are violent in almost like a crowded way, where there's a room full of people that are murdered in Kill Bill and Kill Bill Volume 2, and it's just scores of people. This, where it's killing one person at a time, and it's mercifully beating people one at a time. It's very close up.
Right. It's very personal.
Very personal.
Uh-huh.
And I was in pain for part of the movie just because when you see people get shot in certain places, it hurts you. Mm-hmm. Your empathy has to go there. He draws you into this. I mean, and Kurt Russell, oh my God.
It's much like how our podcast is so intimate inside everyone's ears, where we're just, abusing our listeners over and over.
Well, at least you are.
All right. Bye, Dennis. We'll talk to you next week. Love you, man. If you've enjoyed what you just heard, you can support us by telling a friend or sharing us on social media. Monthly donations to help us pay for hosting and editing can be provided at patreon.com/happyhour. That's all one word, happy hour. All our episodes, including show notes for each episode, are available on our website, happyhour.fm. You can tweet at us at happyhour.fm, that's with a dot spelled out, happyhour.dotfm, or we can receive email at the same name, happyhourdotfm@gmail.com. It would also be great if you could give us a positive rating on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. That really helps other people find us. See you next week.